Hello everyone, welcome back to Radio Platino. Always bring you the most exclusive and entertaining podcast that your mind desires. Please remember to donate to our cause as we use this money to invest in better equipment and better interviews for people as significant as the one we are having today. Without further ado, please everyone, welcome Rodion Romanovic Raskolnikov. Mr. Raskolnikov, it's more than a pleasure to have you here sitting with us, especially since it's probably very hard for you, considering that you would have to relive those dark moments that you faced 9 years ago. 9 years ago, right? No, not at all. In fact, the pleasure is mine for having you guys give me the opportunity to spread my knowledge to your audience, since I believe the topics that will be touched upon here in this interview are for the more serious phases of my life. And by this I mean the period of time before I was in prison, right? Well, you couldn't have said it better, sir. And I also have to say that it was quite difficult to get permission from your lawyer to get you to get you to do this interview. Do you have any idea why this might be? Yes, now that you mention it, I do recall my lawyer talking to me about why I shouldn't come to this interview. He said that if I do something like this just a year after getting out of jail, it would affect the way the main public will see me, and I might say more than I would want to say by accident, which would then probably lead to more stress in my mind. But with all honesty, I really feel like being here is really necessary, since I want the people to know what I went through, so that perhaps maybe I can change people's perspective of the things they should or should not do. And if I manage to change at least one person after this, then it would make me a really happy person. We agree, since as you may know, the main purpose of our podcast are to change how people view this world, for the better, of course. And we thought someone like you would cause the impact that we have been waiting for a long time. Anyways, firstly, I would like to ask, how would you define yourself? Like someone who was imprisoned with hard labor and that has gone through so many mental problems. How is it that he views his own personality? Also, what is it that led you in the first place to commit the murder by which you got judged? I ask this because you have said many times that you regret having done that. So how exactly does someone like you, who in my opinion seems like a person who I don't see committing a crime, how does someone get to that point? I'm glad you asked, since at one point I saw myself as one of humanity's chosen ones. I felt like I was the only one who was mentally prepared to commit that murder, and because of that, I felt special. I felt like the reincarnation of Napoleon just because of that. However, shortly after I told my partner Sonia the truth, I totally regretted having that mentality. After 8 years in hard labor, I discovered that I don't have to be someone who has influence in the world, but someone who was happy with his life. You ask, how do I define myself? Well, if I had to answer that question, I would say that I'm a true learner. And how exactly does someone like you sleep at night having to to think about committing such a crime? How do you do it? During my time in jail, it was horrible, since I was sleeping all the time with nightmares. And before managing to fall asleep, I would always overthink what I had done for 2 hours or more. However, now that I live with my partner, it's much easier, since it feels like you have someone who will share that burden with you, and you no longer feel alone in this world. Honestly, Sonia is the reason why I'm here right now and didn't commit suicide a long time ago. As of now, we're expecting a baby to be born, and I believe life will get even better. Life will get even better. You say that at one point you felt good at the death of the pawnbroker because you thought you were making everyone a favor. But let's not forget, you also killed her sister, who had nothing to do with this. She was just passing by. How exactly do you feel towards her murder? Her murder was something I felt really bad about, since, as you mentioned before, she was innocent and had nothing to do with the issues I had with the pawnbroker. However, at that moment, I really had no choice. I was scared. It was obvious that if I let her live, she would confess about me, and I would have probably ended up doing more time in jail than what I did now. Mr. Raskolnikov, you had previously said in an interview that there was this person who was trying to take advantage of your family's economic situation. Who was this person, and in what way did he try to take advantage of your family's income? We would really want to learn more about this. I assume you're talking about Lucen. Lucen was this government official. My sister worked for his cousin's husband. Basically, uh, that this husband tried to get together with my sister for sexual pleasure, and my sister rejected him. And the husband doing this pissed off his wife, so the wife spread the rumor that my sister tried to get with the husband, and this got Lucian's attention. So he offered my sister to marry him, since my sister was poor. We were poor, and my sister would have done anything for money. But Lucian didn't want to marry her for love. He just wanted to marry her because he believed that my sister would have done anything for her, and he basically wanted my sister to be his slave. And how exactly did this make you feel? I was never more pissed off in my life. My sister was willing to sacrifice herself for that pig. I obviously did everything in my power to stop that wedding, and thank God it worked. Not only that, but my sister married my best friend Rasumihin, whom is actually in love with her, and they are in a very happy relationship. Rasumihin is a great friend, as he took care of my sister while I was gone for a while. I will forever be indebted to him. Wow, he seems like a really good friend. He is. At the point where I feel like the world was sending for me, he was always there to support. I take the chance to tell the following to everyone watching. You have a friend that genuinely cares about you. Don't let go of him. That is the person who will be with you no matter what. And if you lost him, believe me, you will have a hard time. One thing that people still don't have very clear is what exactly motivated someone like you to kill the pawnbroker. Could you please explain this to us in detail? Alyona Ivanovna was someone that everyone hated, especially me. She didn't mind leaving someone hopeless if they didn't pay her, and because of her, many people were really affected. At one point, I even heard two officers talking about how the world would be a better place if she was just dead. I let these thoughts get into my head, of course, and I ended up killing her. In the process, I ended up killing her sister as well, which, as you know, wasn't really part of the plan. Oh, okay, I see. And Sonia, can you tell us how exactly was it that you met her? Sonia was the daughter of an old friend I had called Marmeladov. He suffered of depression because his family was introduced to prostitution in order to make money. Eventually, Marmeladov died in an accident, so I decided to help the family. That's when I met Sonia, and I eventually realized that I was attracted to her. This guy, Lucen, did he ever do something to specifically bother you? That guy, he was really full of surprises. So he got really pissed off because I didn't allow him and my sister to get married. That to bother me, he wanted to incriminate Sonia of robbery. He basically he basically put money in her clothes, and he then claimed that Sonia had stolen them. And so someone stepped in and exposed him. And yeah, he just left the party that time. Wow. Mr. Raskolnikov, you have lived quite the life, in my opinion. You went from someone who murdered a lady to a prisoner, and now a celebrity who is recognized by many people in the world. How exactly does it feel having all these transitions in life? Well, it really hasn't been easy for me. All the mental insecurities I had after the murder were something I really couldn't let go of. However, after I decided to confess the truth, believe it or not, I was relieved. I no longer had to live in a lie, and all I can think about while I was in jail was that eventually everything would get better. And it really became better for me as I no longer have that stress upon me. However, one thing I do regret from all this was my mother's death. She really loved me and my sister, but she died after I confessed the murder. We are really sorry for what happened to your mother. You have all of our condolences here. And on that topic, how exactly was your mother? Can you tell us a bit about her? My mother was a very strict woman, but very loving deep down. She never really agreed with me dating Sonia, but I guess it was just because she wanted what she thought was best for me. However, she was going to allow my sister to get married to Lucine, which honestly bothered me, given that she didn't like the people I dated, but she wanted to allow Dunia to basically give away her free will. Wow, what a woman. And another question, how exactly was your first time entering prison? At first, it was kind of scary, but eventually you get used to it. You met people who share the same interest in you, and I'm not gonna lie, there were moments I actually enjoyed myself. However, there was also a grand majority of people who only like to harm others and establish some respect for themselves. A lot of times, the guards did nothing since they were paid by prisoners to allow them to have things their way, and it was really frustrating since you really couldn't do much about it because it might lead to an extension in your sentence. And your friendships. How exactly did you get along with the people in the prison? I had friends who have been put in jail for crimes as serious or worse than mine. But what we all had in common was that we regretted it after doing them. Actually, we were like brothers since we always helped each other whenever it was needed, and we had a lot of fun telling stories to each other about how we went into prison in the first place. Whenever I have the chance, I go from time to time to visit them in prison, and it's always good to talk to them. Well, that's always good to know. Now, after hearing all of this, I have the urge to ask, would you consider that you're a man who's afraid of death? If you would have asked that question 9 years ago, I would have most likely said yes. And in fact, during the time I was in prison, there were many occasions in which I almost got killed, but I managed to survive since I learned how to move in prison and how to communicate in a way to gain trust from people. After facing death so many times, I eventually accepted that it was a huge possibility that I was gonna die. So I just became ready for whatever was to come. So I would say no, I'm not scared of death. And did you ever get into a fight while you were in prison? Well, not really in too many, but in quite a few. I always try to grab as less attention as possible in order to not get extended penalty. And also, those who were caught misbehaving were given extra work, and I really didn't want more problems. But then again, I was in prison, so I inevitably got caught in two or three fights. Okay, okay. I suppose that's good. As of now, do you still live in Russia? 2 months after I was released, Sonia and me had to leave Russia to find new life. Russia just has too much painful memories, and we thought that if we really want to move forward, we have to first clear our minds. As I said before, we are also expecting a baby, and I would like to raise a child in a place where he sees only happiness and doesn't have to go through what I had to go through. And do you and Sonia have plans to tell your story to the kid? Of course. I believe my child has a right to know what his father did, and I also feel that in order for us to educate him well, and he doesn't end up like I did, he has to know what he should avoid doing. Since you seem so happy with Sonia, I would like to ask, what exactly does a woman have to have inside her to make you fall for her? Interesting question. I have actually never thought of that. Now that you mention it, I never really planned to fall in love. But if I were to answer based on what I like about Sonia, I would say that it has to be someone who is caring, who is always wishing you for the best, who is willing to share whatever burden you may have. Basically, someone who is willing to give their all for you. Mr. Raskolnikov, will you say that you are a good person? What exactly is your definition of a good person? I guess someone who just acts accordingly to what is expected from society without extremely violating these laws. Well, in that case, no. The moment I killed Alyona Ivanovna's sister, I became a bad person. So let me get this straight. You think that what makes you a bad person isn't killing the pawnbroker, but killing her sister. Just her sister. I would argue so. Because that woman, she was definitely a bad person and many people suffered because of her. I stand by my feelings and I regret having killing her. But let's be honest, no one felt bad when she died. In fact, I feel like many people were relieved the moment her death was announced. But that doesn't change the fact that you killed someone who didn't violate the law. Sure, her personality was probably not the most likable, but she didn't do anything illegal. You see? People like you are the reason I had the mindset I had back then. You believe that as long as you stick to what is accepted by law, it is okay to do non-moral things. You people are the ones that get to decide what's right or wrong. And you also are the ones who get to decide what's moral and what's not. So you're telling me killing that lady was moral? Not really. But I'm not gonna say it was immoral either. But sir, I come again. You killed her. She was a human being. She had family. She had friends. She probably might have even had plans for the future. And you just killed her for doing her job in a more strict way. I really wish people like you experience what it's like being poor. There's no fun in that. It is all hard work ever since you were born. And I am very sure that you never had to be in the streets asking for money and food, crawling in the ground in hunger. You who were probably raised by a middle upper class family and thus will never understand us from the low class. Sir, I don't think you know me enough to make such assumptions about me. Believe me, I do. I'm the type of person who can say how someone else is just by the first impression. You on one hand don't care what people might learn from this interview. Look at you, asking for donations. You don't even have that much of an audience. All you want is more ratings. And I'm sure your show will skyrocket after this. Because yes, I'm giving you all the fame you want. You'll get rich after this. I hope you thank me. Okay, sir, let's leave it there. You and I clearly aren't on the same page. And I want to apologize if I made you feel uncomfortable. No, don't be sorry. I'm the one who apologizes. I just lost my composure because of a stupid question. I'm really sorry. It's fine, I guess you have gone through a lot. Anyways, before we leave, I would like to ask, could you please tell us what advice you would give to everyone watching? Well, I guess I'd say that if you have a bad feeling about something, then don't do it. In many cases, it is really important that we trust our instincts, especially if it's something as stupid as I did. Believe me, it is not worth it. There are people who care about you and who will not be able to stand losing you for so long. Well, guys, we hope you enjoyed Mr. Raskolnikov. We would like to thank you for being here once more, and we hope that in the future we can once again exchange words. Of course we can. And I'm the one who thanks you for allowing me to be here. I'm really happy I got to share my story with everyone watching, and I hope that everyone could have gotten something out of this. Guys, this has been Radio Platinum. Peace out. Radio blood, no blood, no blood, no blood, no.